Toulouse, 22nd of March 2012, the terrorist Mohamed Merah is shot dead by the anti-terrorist unit. A few months later in London, Michael Adebolajo hacked a British soldier to death in the name of jihad, the Islamic Holy War. France and the United Kingdom are the two European countries which have suffered the most from such rare but extremely violent acts. How does a normal human being become a jihadist? Is there a way back? Our investigation starts in France with Malika, whose son joined a radical group suspected of terrorism. We pursue our quest in London, where we meet a former Islamist who tries to help those tempted by jihad. We travel to the very root of the problem in Pakistan, where fighting against terrorism is a matter of survival. There, a group of psychiatrists is conducting an experiment aimed at turning Taliban into solid citizens. Can jihad be halted in its tracks? This is the story we're about to tell. We decided to make this film after meeting Malika Amr. She's 54 years old, a mother of 5. She could have been an ordinary French housewife, but she isn't. Her son Samir flirted with jihad, and she's determined to find out why.
Samir was a completely normal boy. We brought him up to be respectful. None of my children ever got in trouble with the police. It was a normal household, and he was like all young boys his age, going out, chasing after girls.
But at the age of 23, Samir drifted into radical Islam. He's been in prison for the last year, suspected of plotting acts of terrorism. The grandson of an Algerian soldier who fought on the French side during the War of Independence, Samir himself was in the army for a while. He enjoyed the discipline and rules and was happy to serve his country. Then came the accident. Samir was riding a motorbike, his twin brother Sofiane on the back, when they were hit by a car. Samir was unhurt, but his brother died in his arms.
Samir went mad. He grabbed a hold of me and screamed, "Why, Mom? Why him? He was the good boy. I'm the bad one. I killed my brother," he said. In any case, as his mother, I felt responsible. Maybe I didn't give my son the support he needed. I was too wrapped up in my own grief.
No one was able to reach the young man. He spent days on end surfing the web until the fatal click. Forsane Alizza, an organization which promotes jihad and shows simulated combat videos.
C'est l'otage. Takbir! Takbir! L'enfer vous est réservé, Inch'Allah Ta'ala. Vous allez entendre les crépitements du feu sous vos pieds.
Its leader, Mohammed Amshalan, may have had a considerable influence on Samir. Within a few months, the young man has totally changed.
He looked at me like I wasn't his mother. "You're a non-believer." He told us we were all damned. His father was damned, was going straight to hell because he liked a pastis in the evening. But this didn't come from him. He'd been brainwashed. What does it say in the Quran? Whoever takes a soul kills all humanity. That says it all. Do they skip that page? Maybe. They haven't seen it clearly. Why doesn't the French government do anything? Why? They're destroying our children.
Destroying Samir and others via the internet. Radical organizations such as Forsane Alizza use the web's anonymity to spread their propaganda. The most militant hide behind seemingly harmless websites, which you can get to with a few clicks, like this blog aimed at Muslim women. Here, among the recipes, there are less gastronomic instructions for how to turn one's son into a jihadist. Today, even sites accessible to everyone like YouTube and Dailymotion are used for indoctrinating fragile minds. Their impact on web users seems clear. Each time the authorities close down a radical site, it opens up the next day under a different name. The hunt is endless. Malika sees her son as a victim of indoctrination by internet. She wants the law to save her son and the sons of others by putting a stop to this infernal manipulation.
Bonjour, maître. Bonjour, vous allez bien?
Maître Aoudia is Samir's lawyer.
Take a seat, please. The charge against your son is associating with criminals with a view to committing acts of terrorism. He mentioned plans to kidnap a judge in Lyon.
That's not how I raised my son. I don't recognize him anymore. These terrorists took my son from me.
It's a sect. They use the same methods. The indoctrination is identical. And the law doesn't have experts in this phenomenon, so it's powerless.
Samir's case is in the hands of the anti-terrorist judge Marc Trévidic. He's been keeping track on jihadist movements for the last 10 years.
You want us to fight terrorism? How do you expect us to do that? I mean it. It used to be a real criminal phenomenon with major terrorist groups. Okay, it's our job. But now, when people are radicalized right across the board and anyone might do anything, it's very hard to fight it. There's a category now of apprentice jihadists who are a product of the internet. They're extremely radicalized by means of simple, easily memorized ideas and powerful images. Islam is something young Muslims feel deeply about. They are shown images of Islam under attack because it's the only way of persuading them to take up arms to defend it. We need long-term solutions to stop so many getting swept up in this.
France, however, has no long-term strategy for countering this sort of radicalization, despite being on the front line. The country's 90 arrests per year linked to Islamic terrorism account for half of all such actions in the European Union. But the measures used are purely repressive. Across the Channel, the United Kingdom is trying out a policy of prevention. Here, Islamic radicalization is very visible. For years, the government turned a blind eye in the interest of keeping the peace. But the attacks of 7/7/2005 sent a shockwave through the country. According to the intelligence services, there could be 3,000 individuals prepared to carry out violent acts on British soil. So in 2008, the authorities set up a jihad prevention program. Its aim is to reintegrate wavering individuals before it's too late. One association funded by this program is the Active Change Foundation. Anif Kadir, its president, is himself a reformed jihadist who took the terrorist trail via Pakistan to Afghanistan.
I hope you're gonna remain in touch, you know.
Yeah, I will.
Please do. But if you don't stay in touch, we'll come and find you, you know that. The push-pull factors is by being simply human. And it's the one who is most human that is likely to carry out acts of terror. Why? Because he has had enough. He can't handle the way things are. He wants to do something. I would easily say that I was radicalized. But I could also say, in the terms that we use, is that my emotions, my sympathy, and my anger was abused, was used against me.
Anif Kadir calls on his personal experience, which led him on the path of jihad after 9/11. Full of remorse after his short Pakistani adventure, he created the foundation. Young adults gather like in any community center. Many have had problems with drugs and crime. Instructors, often Muslims, try to identify those who could be easy prey for jihadists. One such is Usman, 22 years old. For several weeks he has been making worrying pronouncements.
So Usman, what's the issues? I heard some of the boys were talking that you got some concerns, you got some problems going on.
A bit angry with the situation in Syria at the moment. It just feels like, you know, when you want to grab something and just destroy it, like the first thing that comes in your hand like a can, it just crushes.
So if you had a choice, if let's say Bashar al-Assad or some of his soldiers came into this room now, what would you do?
Destroy this? Probably rip their hearts out.
One of the Mujahideen, let's say, the rebel fighters, he ripped somebody's heart out and he bit it. Is that being a Muslim? One thing we've learned from our religion and from the Prophet ﷺ is that anger is forbidden. It's haram. It's not a part of Islam. You can reject the perfected religion of Islam, which forbids you from being angry. Let's say you do that. Let's say that happens, and it may. You go there, you find somebody, you want to rip his heart out. Immediately after you do that, you get shot in the head, you die. Where do you think you're going to go? Paradise? You ain't going to paradise. You're going straight to hell.
And he wants to keep a close eye on Usman. But if Usman turned out to be genuinely dangerous, could Anif do anything to stop him?
Can you imagine going to Afghanistan and fighting against the British forces?
It will be a hard decision for me to even think about getting involved with something like that. It's like fighting your own people with your own people is just something I wouldn't.
All potential jihadists are ruled by the same anti-Western ideology. Usman, though, doesn't seem to have gone that far. He wouldn't take up arms against the British Army. At least, associations like Active Change provide a certain level of prevention. But the most radicalized individuals never even step through the door. Through lack of results, the British government has halved the money it spends on its prevention program, from 70 to 35 million euros. The country is looking for other ways to combat the problem.
It is clear we need to do more. When young men born and bred in this country are radicalized and turned into killers, we have to ask some tough questions about what is happening in our country. It is as if, for some young people, there is a conveyor belt to radicalization that has poisoned their minds with sick and perverted ideas. We need to dismantle this process at every stage.
How does one identify those Islamists liable to commit violence? Is the trigger psychological, social, or political? We decided to go to the very root of the problem, to Pakistan, one of the nerve centers of international terrorism. Blighted by Islamic fundamentalism, the land of the pure is now more like a country under a curse, with its population of 190 million held hostage by this scourge. As one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Pakistan is both a source and a prime victim of jihad, with 50,000 killed already. Pakistan is one of the major training centers for potential jihadists, a passageway to Afghanistan as taken by such as Mohammed Merah. Half its territory is a sanctuary for armed groups. It takes months to get the necessary permits for filming in Pakistan. In order to get some grasp of the mindset that leads to holy war, our first stop is in a madrasa, a Qur'anic school. Out of fear, our contact takes us to one of the most moderate, Jamia Binoria. We are personally received by Mufti Naim, who rules over the school.
All we seek here is to increase knowledge. Some students go to work in the United States. The FBI has never had cause to investigate any of them for involvement in terrorist activities or such like. We just want our students to be good Muslims, not terrorists. You, French and Americans, send us your terrorists rather than locking them up. Within 2 years, we'll turn them into decent people. It is said that madrasas are terrorist schools. On the contrary, we turn terrorists into good men.
Reassuring words. After the interview, we're allowed to look inside the madrasa, which has several hundred boys. An old man opens the gate. Surprisingly, the lock is on the outside, keeping the boys in. Penetrating further, our sense of unease grows. 100 or so boys are intoning the Quran. Some are barely 8 years old. Some seem to be in a trance. Mostly from disadvantaged backgrounds, these boys are placed here by families unable to take care of them.
We teach the Quran here. It changes the lives of these boys. They start praying and learn politeness. Yes, they study the Quran all day. And there's another hour of school after prayers, the nighttime prayers. No, these children don't speak Arabic.
In a corner of a room, one young man sits apart from the others. He's 18 years old and British. The son of a mixed marriage, he was sent to Pakistan by his father 2 years ago.
The first year was really tough. I was ill like every other day. Teachers wouldn't understand. It's tough. The cleanliness, the food and stuff like that. The food is good, they give that all they can give. You can't ask for more. But for people like from England, stuff like that, obviously they would be arrogant about it, no? And I was arrogant about it.
What was your life like in the UK?
Pretty much normal. Laziness. Didn't used to pray Salah.
Do you like music?
I liked music.
What sort of stuff?
I liked everything you like.
Can you listen to music here?
I did in the first year, no, I left it.
You don't miss it?
I do miss it. But we learn so on that we're prohibited from these kind of things. It's not good for us.
Did you have dreams when you were in the UK about your future?
I started psychology, so I thought, do something with this. It was really interesting. About the mind.
And as for now, what do you want to do?
We'll see. Allah guides me. The person doesn't know when he's going to die.
A person doesn't know when he's gonna die. How can a young man of 18 speak about his future in such a way? At the feet of what demons is his mind preparing to lay its arms? With our guards distracted, we slip into the dorms, managing to find ourselves alone for a few moments with a group of boys.
बड़ा होके क्या करना चाहते हो? जहाद। किसके खिलाफ? कुफार के। तो अगर कोई कुरान नहीं पढ़ता, इस्लाम नहीं करता, तो वो दुश्मन है, उसको मार देना चाहिए।
तबलीग के बाद इंशाअल्लाह ताला फिर हज आजाद कर। हज आजाद
और कुछ नहीं करना जिंदगी में कोई ख्वाब नहीं है तुम्हारा
अगर जान में शहीद हो गया तो अगर नहीं शहीद हो गया अगर जान में शहीद हो गया तो फिर नहीं मर सकता फिर
Indoctrinated from the age of 8, these boys spend the day learning the Quran in a language they don't understand. They get little sleep and barely an hour and a half of break time per day. It's a frighteningly efficient conditioning method. Their determination will be total if ever they are called on to act. In Pakistan, there could be as many as 30,000 madrasas with hundreds of thousands of boys caught in their nets. Potential jihadists from Europe can also undergo this brainwashing, but they've usually been radicalized before even arriving in Pakistan or in the other lands of jihad. But what is it that triggers this radicalization? That very evening, we get caught up in a mass event. Hundreds of young radicals take to the streets for a meeting of Jamaat-e-Islami, a radical political organization militating for the establishment of Sharia law in Pakistan. The organization is one of the main sources of extremist ideology in the country. The atmosphere is electric when Syed Munawar Hassan, the one they call the Emir, appears. An emir appealing for jihad. His aim is a return to the purity of the time of the Prophet. Yet he has won over large numbers of the middle class and educated youth. Like Saad, a young militant we found screaming by the tribune.
After joining Jamaat-e-Islami, I stopped listening to music and watching films. Thanks be to God, I stopped all that. Now I only read religious poems that extol the message of Islam, a revolutionary message inviting youngsters to change and take the right path.
How far are you willing to go?
All the way.
Willing to fight?
If God wishes it.
Willing to die?
If I have to.
How these educated Pakistani youngsters end up being radicalized is as much a mystery as it is for Western youngsters. But it seems that the mechanism could be a similar one. The next day, we get in contact with Saad again. To learn more about his case, we want to film him in his home environment. After a long hesitation, he agrees. Saad is 20, and he's studying journalism. In the main room, we find his father and a friend. His mother escaped from our view.
I have tried to raise my children according to the precepts of the Quran and the Sunnah, leaving them free to choose for themselves.
Jamaat-e-Islami has taken over the job of raising me, replacing my parents. I used to go out and get in late. It had become a habit. I was getting into bad ways.
We didn't know what to do. But now, we are sure that he is on the straight and narrow. This interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah is spreading everywhere, even influencing youngsters who wear jeans or shirts and ties. This ideology has even touched people who work for the BBC, who look modern and moderate. You'd never guess their beliefs just from looking at them.
Only a few months ago, Saad was more interested in the movies than in jihad. But in his room, Bollywood posters have now made way for anti-American messages. His computer wallpaper is a photo of Jamaat-e-Islami's guru with the father of the Pakistani nuclear bomb. How does a 20-year-old come to this?
In the organization, it's love that binds us together, like a family. One day I had a crash on my motorbike and I broke my arm. I was bleeding and I didn't know what to do. So I used my mobile to call the nearest chapter of Jamaat-e-Islami. A quarter of an hour later, help arrived and they took me to hospital. They took care of everything. And they called my father, who then came to the hospital. That's a family.
Could this be the trigger for radicalization? The ordinary need of young men, be they in London, Paris, or Islamabad, to belong to a brotherhood, which makes them feel cared for and compensates for our society's lack of ideals. In Pakistan, the scourge gains ground daily. But does this radicalization necessarily lead to violence? The urban landscape bears the stigmata of fundamentalism's rise. Lahore used to be the cultural capital of Pakistan, home to a flourishing cinema industry which has now all but disappeared. In the center of town, cinemas have been replaced by petrol stations. Traditional music is barely taught anymore. The heritage of a 4,000-year-old civilization is being erased by an Islamic identity shared by the world's fundamentalists. Violent outbursts in the name of Islam are commonplace. We managed to obtain a special permit to visit Lahore's Christian neighborhood, Joseph Colony, at present cordoned off by the police. Only 3 weeks previously, it was the scene of a real pogrom.
मैंने छड़िया कि साडे नाल स्लोक ने कीता कि साडे नाल एडी मेहनत नाल सी बनाए अपने तेज बनाए सन लेकिन मैं तो उन्होंने थोड़ी पाकर रोनी उन्हें रात पर दिन उन्होंने बच्चों ने बददुआवां देनी अल्लाह करके बेड़ा गर्क हो जिन्हें साडे घर नूं जला के सुआह कर दिता वे लेकिन कुछ नहीं इन्होंने सानूं दिता है
कि साढ़े भरावां ने जां असीं इंज ही मरना रुल के कदी मकान साड़ ले कदी बंदे मर गए जिते देखो जी साइयां ते जुल्म हो रहा कोई भी काम ते साइयां ते पै गया चोर कोई भी किसी तरह का जुल्म ते साइयां ते पै रहा असीं माड़े कौम आ तां पै रहा साढ़े ते असीं चाहने कि अगर सानूं इत्थे नहीं तफस मिलदा ते सानूं इत्थों ऊंज ही लै जान बाहर असीं इत्थों छड्ड देने आ पाकिस्तान
Hashi and Pervez lost everything in the fire, but at least they're still alive. The neighborhood becomes aware of our presence. Another man wants to talk to us.
की कहंदे अटैक होया उन्हां दी डेथ हो गई ये देखो वो तस्वीर दा वालदा ली ये देखो ऐसे ही हादसे से डेथ हुई है ये वालदा की तस्वीर है दसो
ये मेरी वालदा है इनकी डेथ हुई जब ये हादसा हुआ तो वालदा दौड़कर बाहर गिर गई और उसका चूकना टूट गया चूकना टूटने के बाद वो 6 दिन के बाद उसकी डेथ होगी खुदा ने जान तो लेनी है उस तरह ले जाता तो हमें दुख नहीं होना था ये सारी ज़िंदगी हम नहीं भूल सकते इस हादसे की वजह से हमारी माँ मुझे बहुत प्यार करती थी
Most of the inhabitants got out just in time, but a man filmed the whole scene. Khalid Shahzad, a human rights activist. He's a Christian. He could have been lynched. Khalid entrusted us with bringing the film back to Europe. The neighborhood is sacked in less than 2 hours. An outraged Muslim neighbor tries to intervene. But faced with the mob, his resistance was useless. The police stood by, doing nothing. This is the third major attack on Christians in less than a year. But throughout the streets of Joseph Colony, there's one subject people avoid. What could have triggered such unbridled violence? Yet, the people here have the support of Nadia Jamil, a very popular actress and also a Muslim. Disgusted by this unthinking violence, Nadia is using her fame to help the neighborhood. Through her efforts, the government has pledged to rebuild here. Nadia gathers locals together for a meeting. Like us, she wants to understand what happened.
Tell me, what do you think happened here? Why did they burn all these houses, your houses in Joseph Colony? You over there.
I don't really know. But what I heard was that on a Friday afternoon, there was a bit of a dispute between a Christian and a Muslim. And they used an argument that we hear a lot against Christians in Pakistan, that someone had blasphemed.
Be careful what you say.
They say he'd insulted their prophet, offended him. He'd been drinking.
Hey, watch what you're saying. You're being filmed.
Yes, be careful what you say. My advice is to say no more. Ted, stop the camera.
Blasphemy. Simply saying the word out loud makes the whole room panic. It was nothing but a rumor, but it was enough to get the whole neighborhood burnt down. No one in Joseph Colony has any hope in the future.
Would all those children who'd like to leave Pakistan raise their hands?
Some give us copies of their ID cards. They think we have the power to take them with us to Europe. It's one of the hardest moments we experience making this film.
She says, when I meet people like you, I feel hope. And I said, and she says, yeah, if there were more Muslims like you, we wouldn't have this problem. And she says that there are a lot of Muslims who she meets who are ashamed, and they say that this has got nothing to do with Islam at all, which is true.
Today, the Pakistani government wants to fight radicalization and bring an end to terror. How can it succeed where Europe and the US have failed? We head for the very heart of the conflict, to Baluchistan. Bordering Afghanistan and Iran, this region accounts for almost half of Pakistan's territory. Since 2001, it's been a sanctuary for the Taliban and certain members of Al-Qaeda. If these jihadist groups got the upper hand, the very survival of Pakistan would be threatened. As we arrive, Quetta seems to be in a state of siege. Bombings, abductions, and assassinations are commonplace. Travel permits are granted sparingly, and the security measures are draconian. We're escorted by 10 armed policemen we asked to stop to get some footage.
5 minutes, no more.
But why?
It's too dangerous.
Why is it more risky today?
Because it's Sunday, and in Quetta, that's when attacks happen. There's political campaigning in the marketplace. That's a target for the Taliban.
The police are afraid the terrorists might hear of our presence. The policemen are nervous, their trigger fingers itchy. How do you know who's a terrorist?
We recognize them by their faces. They have a very noticeable look on their faces. It's frightening. If there aren't many people around, we can isolate a terrorist and deal with him. Look, there was an explosion here, and another one over there.
We're escorted to a secure hotel where we're confined for 48 hours. Then, at 2 in the morning, the Quetta anti-terrorist squad comes to take us with them on an operation to break up a network trafficking arms to terrorists. The squad leader is Abdullah Sayed. We're not allowed to film inside a house. The police fear there could be a riot if we film the women. The anti-terrorist squad seizes a significant amount of military gear. Taken by surprise, the 3 suspects don't put up any resistance. The policemen are lucky this time. In 2012, 320 of them were killed by terrorists. The policemen find a lump of hashish stuck to a coin. The suspects are put in a cell already crammed with 10 other men. They'll stay there until the investigation is concluded.
Submachine gun के ammunition मिला, कैमरा मिला है और खंजर है, हशीश भी मिला है और वहाँ से 12 दाने.
The trafficking of arms and drugs across the Afghan border is at the heart of the jihadist financing. Still, there's a worrying aspect to tonight's seizure.
We did not see any sort of, Kalashnikov. It's a great concern for me. Capturing these bullets does not make Quetta safe. We need to do a lot. We need to capture the big fishes.
Sayed, the squad leader, is playing it tight. In 90% of cases, Pakistani judges don't even prosecute people charged with terrorism offenses for fear of reprisals. The situation is so serious that the Pakistani authorities have appointed Mushtaq Sukhera, a key anti-terror figure, Inspector General of Baluchistan. 2 weeks after this interview, he narrowly escaped death in an assassination attempt, which left 6 dead and 50 wounded.
When 9/11 happened, jihadi elements along with Al-Qaeda, they were routed out from Afghanistan. They took refuge in the Pakistani tribal areas and also in Baluchistan. They started taking de facto control of those areas, and that was the time when the Pakistani forces started. First they have negotiation with them, have some agreements with them, but they were not abided by these Taliban elements. Then the Pakistani forces, to establish the writ of the state, started actions against them. Terrorists can travel anywhere to any country. It's difficult to stop them. So the world should support Pakistan wholeheartedly, because Pakistan is in fact fighting the war for the whole world.
Mushtaq Sukhera's words are carefully chosen. Relations between NATO and the Pakistani forces have gotten much worse since bin Laden was found in May 2011 in Abbottabad, in the north of the country, only a short distance from a military academy. Could the Pakistani army really have been unaware that the most wanted terrorist in the world was hiding there? Since then, NATO has greatly reduced its logistical and financial support for the Pakistani forces. We arranged to meet the mine-clearing unit of the anti-terrorist squad.
जो टेररिस्ट इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं एक्सप्लोजिव, उसकी मिकदार बहुत ज़्यादा है, जो कि ये आईडी सूट मेरे ख्याल में उसको बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकते. अभी इस वक्त जो लेटेस्ट किस्म के लैंडमाइन आ रही हैं उनमें मेटल नहीं है, थ्रू आउट एक्सप्लोजिव है, प्लास्टिक है, जिसके अंदर स्प्रिंग की जगह पर उन लोगों ने प्लास्टिक की प्लेट दी हुई है, जिससे हम लोगों ने अपने जहन से ये रॉड बनाए हैं, उस जगह को अपने फुट क्लियर करते हुए हम आगे जाते हैं। इससे पहले भी जो हमारे स्टाफ है उसकी टांग उड़ गई इसी तरह, वो डिटेक्ट नहीं कर सका, माइंस डिटेक्टर उसके पास था।
With such limited means at their disposal, how can they hope to combat well-trained, equipped, and fanatically determined terrorists? Pakistan has understood that force alone cannot be the solution. The Swat Valley. Up until 2009, the whole region was under Taliban control. For the Pakistani army, it has now become a laboratory in which it is conducting a special experiment. The de-radicalization of jihadists to turn them into solid citizens. It sounds like an impossible challenge. After months of negotiating, we're finally allowed through the gates of the Sabaoon Center.
Assalamu alaikum.
100 or so youngsters are held here in conditions of high security. Some of them have killed. Others were human bombs.
जिंदगी शम्मा के सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी जिंदगी शम्मा के सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी.
Psychiatrist Dr. Fariya Parasha set up the Sabaoon program 5 years ago.
So as you look at these kids, do you think there's anything wrong with them? What do you think? They're just kids. They're just normal kids. See this child here? He started at age 8. He's adorable. Good, Mati. Good. You saved yourself. Very good. He has witnessed and participated in a lot of killings. Used machine guns and snipers and everything else.
Will he be released someday?
Yeah, I think I'm going to reintegrate him within a few months.
Seen from Europe, it seems irresponsible. But Dr. Parasha believes she's found the key to the jihadist mental mechanism.
No doubt, the top commanders in most terrorist organizations are quite educated, right? So they have a motive. They must have quite a strong element of psychopathy in them. Otherwise, why would you do it? And we know what psychopathy is. But that's at another level. But at this level, a militant has a small dose of psychopathy, a psychopathic deviate, lacks impulse control, and family member a terrorist or a role model in his community. But a lot of them are recruited who have fallen in the out group in society or in their peer groups. And I think this is happening in England and the USA quite a lot, and we must watch out for it now.
Dr. Parasha's psychiatric approach to jihad seems surprising. According to her, the leaders are beyond reach. But the foot soldiers, victims of mental manipulation, can be de-radicalized through psychotherapy. We'll call him Noman. He's 16. The army caught him as he was about to blow himself up in a marketplace.
They won't see your face, I promise.
Oh, all right.
When they made you put the explosive vest on, what did they tell you?
That we were going to commit suicide.
And then?
Then we went straight out.
Did you have the remote?
No, the leader had it.
See, control was with the commander, not with him. The commander did not give him the control. Sometimes they have the control, but most times they don't have the control.
I wasn't scared. There were 3 or 4 of us in the market wearing explosive vests. We didn't know which one he was going to detonate.
You weren't afraid wearing that vest?
No. We were told we had to be ready to kill soldiers.
Okay, but it's your life. I don't know. In your place, I'd have been really scared.
I don't know. They said.
See, now this is the extent of the brainwashing. He says, yes, I knew it was my life, but I was asked to kill the army, so that was more important.
They came to the village, to the mosque. They said that the American army was destroying the country, Pakistani army too, that we had to fight them, that our sins would be forgiven. I didn't realize what they were doing, but now I do.
I'm so sad about what happened to you.
And so am I.
What they were doing was a surreal situation and they believed in it. They believed they were doing the right thing.
Dr. Parasha's aim is to reconnect Nouman with reality, to engender in him a feeling of empathy with the victims, so he can eventually identify with them.
Did you love him that much?
No, it wasn't love.
No one's accusing you of anything. That's all over. But you have to think about it. Try to understand. Did you ever consider the innocent people you might kill? Don't be scared. I'm not blaming you.
No, I didn't think about that.
I'm shocked every time. Even now, after hearing hundreds and hundreds of stories, I'm still shocked. How can that be? But it is so.
All the same, Dr. Parasha believes Nouman is making great progress.
Psychological profile shows that he is well accommodated. He's easy talking about everything. He's not trying to protect that person. How much more evidence?
So in his case, you have 100% no doubt.
Never 100%. I don't even trust myself 100%. I would say 99.9%.
At Sabaoon, each inmate follows a personalized program, tailored to the gravity of what he did and his mental state. It's an all-encompassing package, including psychiatric care and social reintegration. The youngsters receive carefully thought-out schooling intended to develop their critical thinking and reasoning powers.
These are hadith books, like Bukhari Sharif, Muslim Sharif, and these are Quran. We don't give them these books. We have a religious scholar here, so he selects some selective topics about peace, love, humanity. Our concentration is on these things. These are the general knowledge books. Like we have a book about Encyclopedia of General Knowledge.
I assume you avoid talking about the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah. We try to give them those books which don't have such things. And already it's in English. So students, most of the students don't understand English. Then we explain them in Urdu, such things which don't have Israelis and such Palestinian wars and these things.
It's ironic. While the madrasas exploit their pupils' ignorance of Arabic to lie to them about the Quran, here they take advantage of the boys' ignorance of English in order to rewrite history. At Sabaoon, the internet and other media are carefully filtered to avoid any stressful references to terrorism. The Qur'anic verses on the wall talk of peace and humanity. The inmates here live in a world where the tensions of war do not exist. Dr. Parasha believes it is vital. The very notion of violence must be wiped from their minds. On this day, a few youngsters are waiting nervously for a final evaluation before a possible release. The Sabaoon program has no fixed time limit. Some leave after 9 months. The most radical have been here for 4 years.
Can you explain what happened to your arm?
Yes?
Does it bother you to talk about it?
No?
Tell me then.
I was on an operation with the Taliban. All of a sudden, we were attacked by a drone, an American drone. I was hit, and when I came around, I saw that I'd lost my hand, and that the Taliban had abandoned me there.
It must have been a shock.
Yes, it was a shock, but that's how it was.
You're a very brave boy. You've got over that. And now you're studying hard. And you know what you have to do to assure your future.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think of the Taliban now?
I wish it had never happened. I wish they'd never existed. Everything I now know is all thanks to you.
But how do you know he's ready to step out?
Well, there are many aspects that we try to cover. What kind of thinking he has regarding militancy, particularly. One child helped catch a few of the militants by giving his maternal uncle's details, taking the army there himself. So it also helps clear their name in their own communities, which adds further support for them in the future.
I feel a lot of love in the way you look at them.
Yeah, of course. They're like my brothers. They're like my brothers here. Yeah.
When they leave, the army supports them in their search for a job and in continuing their studies. All remain under close supervision. Dr. Parasha's method is still at the experimental stage, and she expects a 10% reoffending rate. But it's a simple recipe, workable anywhere. If the experiment proves conclusive, it could provide hope for the whole world. But to really eradicate jihad, the initial radicalization needs to be stopped. And this is impossible unless Muslims themselves, be they in France, Great Britain or elsewhere, wake up to the problem. Unless the enlightened Islam is victorious over Allah's fanatics.
Gala